you for that. And I really understand why I do not enjoy game as I did by the sake of you before as a game researcher. So, hello again, I am Oğuz Turanburuk from CHI'16, and these are the guys over there are my colleagues which are in the technical side, and they're engineers and I'm the designer here. So, today I will talk about the sensation, which is a controller that we developed to make people play games by touching each other and have player experience measurement on that. So as you know now, the games have a lot of modalities new. For example, these embodied controls are really the common ones here, even they're commercialized. And other than that, more novel ones like augmented reality maybe is not a modality, but it's a way that you can play games by embodiedly wandering around. And of course, the virtual reality, a lot of researchers trying to make people embodiedly involved in that kind of games too. But human-to-human touch is actually was not considered as a gaming apparatus sophisticated before, so we're trying to understand what kind of experience can we have if we apply it to the games. Of course, we are not the first. For example, the musical embrace is really a great example of how people can play human-to-human by touching each other. And for example, in here, we're hugging each other and controlling an avatar in the digital screen. But what we're trying to do is actually trying to implement different touch patterns into the game, meaning that not only touching each other, but how you touch to each other would maybe affect how you play that game. So in order to do that, we developed a device called the Sensation, which can detect different touch patterns between people. How this does that is actually, as you see, there are two people face-to-face positions, and when they touch to each other, just like that, the capacitance of the body will change and we can interpret the data over there. So actually this technology is based on a device, not the device, but a method called Touche by Disney Research, which was developed at 2012. So in sensation, touch area is important, and according to the different touch areas, for example, if you touch to another player with your fingertips or with your palm, it differs, so we can interpret that to different gestures actually. So here we can just define up to 4 gestures with that technology, and actually we made a game out of that called Shape Destroy. In Shape Destroy, as you see just here, different touch patterns correspond to different shapes, and if 2 players can achieve that in a certain period of time, these things will just destroy in the screen. So if you just do not want to imagine and see what it likes, you can see it right here. As you see, 2 people are touching each other, and then the shape in the screen is destroyed. To explain more clearly, maybe I can just show you the game loop. As you see here, in Shape Destroy, there are 2 screens. I mean, there are 2 screens back-to-back, and players are in the face-to-face positions. And as you see here, when there is image in the first player's screen, there is not any image in the second player's screen. So when they do the complementary touch pattern, as you just see here, the shape is destroyed over there. So the turn is the second player's. And when the turn is the second player's, the first player's screen is dark, as you just see here, and only the second player sees the shape. So when they do the complementary thing, and it will be destroyed, as you see here. So this is the game loop, and it will go as like that. And a shape destroy, did you put the advertisement over there? Anyway, what's that? Okay, it's Daptai. Okay, this is a previous work actually, and if you're kind of curious, okay, what that Shape Destroy game come from, then it's in a previous work, it's an expert workshop, as you see that here. You can also read that to understand more clearly. Anyway, we were talking about the Shape Destroy over there. So of course we developed that game and implemented, and all HCI people we did an experiment on that with 30 test participants. So procedure was like that. First, we made an immersive tendency test to understand how the players tend to be immersed by games, I mean because they can be in different levels. Then we make them play with gamepad. Then we made an immersive experience test to understand how the player experience over that gamepad. Then we make them play with the sensation, and at the end we fed them more questionnaires and questionnaires to make sure that they will get bored and understand it's not a game but the experiment. So, as you see, of course, we split it into the 2. It was first group A, sensation, and group B first play with the sensation and the gamepad. And of course, we made an analysis on that according to the player involvement model, which was coined by Gordon Kaleja in 2011. I believe it's really a good definition of immersion here because it examines immersion in 6 different dimensions, which one of the first is the kinesthetic involvement. Kinesthetic involvement means that how you're embodiedly involved in the game. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to use embodied control methods like mid-air gestures. Even if you push the buttons or use the gamepad, if you feel that as if you're doing the things that your avatar do, that means you may be more chance to have kinesthetic involved in that game. The second one is ludic involvement, meaning the game design related things of the involvement, meaning that strategies or the rules, or if you like the mechanics of the game, and it was the thing that you put to the game, it's a ludic involvement. Spatial involvement about the game world and the game environment, and narrative involvement means the story of the game, and shared involvement, how you enjoy to interact with each other and the other players while playing the game. And affective involvement, how do you emotionally impressed by that game? For example, maybe you're disgusted, you can be afraid of the game, or maybe you have compassionate feelings towards a character over there. So these are the 6 different dimensions, and we only used 4 of them for our analysis because in our game we didn't have any characters, story, or really deep environments. So let's talk about the results a little bit. After doing that analysis and apply repeated measurement ANOVA test on that, we found that ludic, shared, and affective involvement is higher in the sensation with significant differences. But we saw that kinesthetic involvement didn't change at all. So we actually still curious about why that may happen. Of course, we had some discussion on that, and let's look at them. We believe that it may be we can categorize that in 3 pillars, which are novel control methods, physical contact or impact, and meta rules. The first thing that comes to my mind, this increase may be caused by that novel control method, isn't it? Because we just take some players, go them to an experiment area, and make them try a completely new novel system over there. And this may be why they really enjoy the game more. But we don't think so, because kinesthetic involvement didn't change at all, and kinesthetic involvement is really all about the controls more than anything else. So we suppose that that should also be increased if it's all about novel control methods. But what we think, physical contact and impact is really important, because when players play that game, especially while doing that gesture, by pushing to the player and feel that resistance over there, we observe that they enjoy it a lot compared to the other kind of gestures. So it is also supported by our previous work, saying that physical impacts are really good for social touch. So maybe designing social touch games, maybe we should consider using that kind of gestures or touch patterns in our case. And meta rules and gameplay is also important. In that game, there is this thing, speaking is forbidden. You cannot just say that I have that cube shape in my screen, so let us do that complementary pattern, but you need to somehow communicate with your gestures. So we saw that also became a meta game over that real game. So people are trying to do that things and communicate with each other, and it was all excitement. So control method was just solely the only control method. It was also another game inside of the game. So these are the 3 pillars in our discussion, but of course there is more, but we believe that these are the most important, so you can always go and check the paper if you want to see the other ones. And the other modalities. We have also some limitations that we believe we will overcome in further studies. So these are other modalities and different settings and other game genres. We believe that this system and this way of playing the game should also be testing or compared to the other game modalities over here, because, for example, especially in mid-air gestures, you're already embodiedly involved, and we can more clearly observe if the social touch has a better effect in that kind of things. Other than that, we just test that game in face-to-face position, but we believe that that can be also tested in side-to-side positions or in free-form positions that people can move around and touch each other. patterns, or even back-to-back position, or I don't know, in our case, maybe the back-to-front position too. So the last thing is the other game genres. Most of you most probably know that game. It's Last of Us from Naughty Dog. It's really a game that affection is so much involved, characters, and the narrative is super, and people really feel sometimes love, sometimes pity for their characters. I'm not necessarily say that let's take sensation and the social touch and implement to the existing games, but while designing we should also consider affective or narrative involvement, so we may get some interesting results for that too. So I thank you all for my listening presentation, and if you have questions you can ask right now, but if you do not have, please come and visit us in the interactivity booth 52 and enjoy our game as all other participants in CHI do. Thank you again.
Definitely have time for a couple of questions.
Hi, Andrew Monk, Open Lab, Newcastle University.
Hello.
Very interesting idea to use gestures, mutual gestures in this way. As I understand it, there was pretty short sort of experimental session. How long were they playing this game for?
Actually 5 minutes and 5 minutes for both controllers.
Right.
Yeah.
So, do you have any ideas how you would extend this to make it into a game that you could play for an hour or whatever?
Yeah, there are two things we need to do. First, new positions, because face-to-face and standing with that is kind of tiring first. And second, we need to have a more enjoyable and complex game most probably, because this game is really so simple, but it is good for experimental purposes, because a new control method, new things to do, and complex game would be too much. But we're still trying to understand how can we lengthen that time by different kind of game genres too.
So do you think that you could devise a more complex game that just had 4 gestures, whatever, or would you try and do it by having more?
Yeah, we're trying to understand it in both ways. First, technically, because we need to also do some technical implementations and device to understand, to detect more than 4 gestures. We're working on that. And on the other side, design side, we're trying to understand what kind of games can be developed for that.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, there's
Great.
time.
I was just wondering, I presume all the participants in the study were strangers to each other?
Actually, that's a good question. Some of them, most of them were strangers, but some of them were not, and we didn't actually look at that aspect, but we should do that. We discussed it in that paper. We somehow observed that the people who know each other enjoyed that game a little better than the others. We saw them, but we didn't make any quantitative analysis on that yet.
Okay.
But of course, that should be tested on that too. So,
I had a question. I was curious about the accuracy of detecting the gestures. Like you have the 4 gestures, and you sort of mentioned that including more gestures would require some technical improvements. I was curious if you had any information about how accurate the gesture detection was, and if that impacted the design of the game itself.
Interestingly, that game was not designed technology-driven way. It was in an expert workshop, but we didn't have any technology at our hand, and experts, while saying expert game development people from the field, supposed that it would be better with that gestures, and we developed that device according to that. But of course, that was a 2-day workshop, and we didn't really deep so much into more complex and longer games. In the technical side, we need to test it with more sensors, not just only the capacitive sensors, but maybe some accelerometers or the EMG sensors and things to increase that kind of diversity in gestures. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much again.